Hi, everyone. Welcome back. We're going to talk about the last section in the RBT ethics code. This is the responsibility to the BACB and your supervisor. You need to comply with the BACB and supervision requirements. First is tracking our supervision hours. We submit supervision hours accurately each month, and you don't submit that to the BACB. You just submit that to the company and keep those records. And then you're also going to respond to audit requests. So comply with any BACB and supervisor requirements for audits. And they do happen. There are quite a few audit requests for RBT supervision. A lot of times they're random. Just making sure people are complying with everything. It's really important that you keep good records of your supervision and maintain those supervision records for 7 years. Moving forward, I would say right now, pass your test. But as soon as you pass your test and you're there, you need to create sort of a system that you can maintain these supervision records. So your system should have some paperwork for supervision already, and you can just utilize that. But you need to also keep your own copy of the supervision you receive for 7 years. And so that way, if there is an audit, you have your own copies. I've seen there's an audit and nobody has the copies. Like the company lost them, the supervisor lost them. And so if you have your own copies, that will never affect you. Even if it's a company you worked for 3 years ago, just keep your own records. Correcting inaccurate information. There is a lot of problems, I would say, with supervision and inaccurate information, more so than the data stuff that we already talked about. Correct inaccurate supervision data, that should be data, immediately. Report and correct the error. So proactively take responsibility for the mistake and cross it out. Don't erase it and put your initials by it, showing that you crossed it out and you fixed it. You need to have a commitment to providing accurate information. Maintaining academic integrity. So don't cheat or help others cheat. Once you take the exam, it is copyrighted. If you were to take the exam, see what was on it, and then tell your friend, that's not academic integrity. Someone needs to pass this exam without knowing the specific questions so that we know that they have this level of competency to provide these services. So it's not good to do that. So don't share anything about the exam once you take it. And then any other sort of testing or academic environment you might be in, don't cheat or help others cheat. If a friend asks you for exam questions, decline the request, report the incident, and maintain academic honesty. So uphold the ethical standards in your education. They don't want anyone sharing any of the RBT testing information. And that's very important because if someone knows all the questions, they might not have the breadth of information that someone who passes it does. They just memorize those specific questions, but they don't know differential reinforcement as a concept, which will help them in their work with clients. You need to self-report ethical or legal violations for yourself. So one thing is, the kind of common one would be a DUI. I don't get a DUI, of course, but it's hard to find someone in this field with a misdemeanor or a felony charge. It's possible someone might get a DUI while working in this field. Notify the BACB and your employer within 30 days if you get a DUI. If you have something else, like any legal issue, you're going to disclose it as a major legal event. DUI is a major legal event, but you don't have to report traffic tickets or parking violations. Those are not under their jurisdiction. That's not considered under their purview, but you have to report anything beyond a traffic ticket. Fulfill the obligation to self-report the DUI within the required time frame. For the BACB, it is 30 days to report those things. We'll go over all the things you need to report and the things you don't need to report in that self-reporting section. Intellectual property, we're gonna responsibly use other people's property, including the BACB and their test questions. Do not misuse the BACB or employer's training materials without permission, but anything like my materials, if you share my study guide with all your friends, it's an ethical violation. So don't share my material and don't share your employer's training material. Don't, if you buy something off like Teachers Pay Teachers or Etsy or whatnot to study from, they'll have something about the copyright. Don't share that information. Addressing an audit. Audits do happen. Promptly share the audit notice with your supervisor to address. So this is hard. I've seen this happen. Again, I've never been audited. They notify about your previous supervision and your current supervisor is not the person who was supervising you. So you get the audit notice and the person supervising you would also get an audit notice. Make sure that other person who was supervising you knows about it. The BACB is not supposed to have a wrong email for you. You're supposed to update your email. That's part of it. But a part of your ethical obligation to keep all your information accurate on the RBT, on the BACB website. But what if something happens? You should notify the person supervising you, but you also have to notify your current supervisor because it could affect your certification status. So that's really important. Work with your supervisor to gather all the required information and documentation. This should be kind of a team project. If you were adequately supervised, then you will have the documentation. You two should work together. This will be really easy if you were adequately supervised. You should work together to give all the correct information so that you can pass the audit. Ensure all requested materials are provided within the specific timeframes. When this happens and people don't do this, people do lose certifications. So keep that in mind. Okay, so this is super important, updating statuses. So on the BACB website, the ethical violations that they've dealt with, and there's sort of levels, and we're going to talk about that a little bit too. Sometimes part of the ethical violation or whatever happens to the person is posted publicly. And so that is available on their website to look at those. Now, not that I want you to go look for people or whatnot. I think it's a good exercise for new people to see what are the common ethical violations, and then you can be more aware of that so you're careful in those situations. It's a good idea to review it. And what's sort of interesting is that for RBTs, the primary reason someone might lose their certification is not updating your information in your BACB account. My guess is they decided not to be an RBT anymore and just stopped doing that. That would be my guess. I could be wrong. But it's just good to know, let's always keep our information accurate in the BACB account. It's how they contact you for an ethical violation, for an audit, for a certification status change, everything. And so it's really important that you keep that up to date. When something changes, whether it's an address, phone number, email, the day it changes, it's just in my head to go update it within the BACB account. Okay, so sometimes your certification status changes. What often happens is people forget to renew. It goes inactive. You might need to work with the BACB to rectify that, but you need to notify your supervisor the second it happens, immediately. I've heard of situations where the RBT continues to work even though they no longer have their certification, which is not okay. If you don't have your certification and that certification is being used to bill for some sort of funding source, that would be a big ethics violations. So as a supervisor, we need to know that we're not on the system. There is a public database. We don't check your certification status every month to make sure you've maintained it. That would be a lot of work, and, like, sometimes we have multiple supervisors. You need to notify them of that and the company. It's very important. You can get in so much more trouble if you don't do that. And then you will need to report any certification changes to the BACB within 24 hours. So they'll know if your RBT changes. They're talking about other certification statuses. Okay. So these are kind of your ethical conduct for RBTs. You're going to follow your BACB and supervisor requirements, ensure all supervision documentation and audits are compliant, always be truthful and accurate, correct any mistakes in communications immediately, never cheat or help others cheat. So we're going to maintain integrity in assessments and exams, but especially the BACB assessments and exams. We're going to self-report major events, so you'll report legal issues, investigations, suspensions, health conditions within 30 days. And I'll have a section on that where I'll go over those a little bit more with more depth. You're going to respect intellectual property, so don't misuse the BACB or employer materials, and that's also their trademark. So all the RBT, BCBA, that's all trademarked, so you also can't violate the trademark. Respond quickly to BACB notices, involve your supervisor in any investigations, and keep account information up to date. Report certification statuses within 24 hours to your supervisor and company. Honestly, the day you change your phone number, I would go change it in the database. The day you change your address, maybe like a week. They say like within 30 days, but I would do it as quick as possible. It doesn't take long. So it's not like something you need time to prepare for. You're just changing the information in the account. So you should be able to do that pretty quickly.